So yeah, my name is Mark Reed. I'm a professor and research centre director at Scotland's Rural College. And in the chat, just putting some of the policy roles that I play, some of the market roles that I play, and some of the metrics around my publications and my funding. So you can get a sense of who I am, what I do. So yeah, I'm an academic, but I'm also making an impact from the work that I do. And my task today is to enable you to achieve similar levels of impact in limited time, because the reality is that we are all incredibly busy. You have the same publication funding demands, many of you teaching demands as well, and yeah, family demands, personal needs. How do we fit impact in on top of all that? And that's why I've called today's session Fast Track Your Impact. I want to give you some of the tools that I have discovered and developed and that I train in to enable people to achieve more impact in less time. And I'm going to share with you the tools, the templates, the ways of thinking more strategically about this that will help you in the next 90 minutes to really make a difference from your research. This is work which has been funded by the ForPeat project. I'm going to ask Maria to put a link to the ForPeat project. This is work that is done by Fast Track Impact, the company that I set up based on my research on impact to generate impact from that work. And so this is something that you can get in your own institution as well if you want. And to do that, just go to our website. Also linked to this, I'm going to give you a few things in the chat. All of these will come via email afterwards. We are working from my research impact handbook today. So you're going to get a free copy of the second edition of that book. But you also can get let me see if I just get this into the chat. You can get a discount code for the third edition, which is published by Routledge, which is why I can't give it away for free. But also we have discount codes for my other recent book, The Researcher's Guide to Influencing Policy. And that is going to be the course handbook for the session that we're running. I think it's next month, Maria. So maybe, again, Maria, at some point when you get a chance, if you could stick that into the chat, that would be great. So here we are. Let's just get this for you. The message from this is evidence-based. It's based on my own research, my reading of the literature, but it's also experience-based. So I want to give you a few stories, tips, tricks that actually work in the real world. And in theory, this is going to then enable us, whether we are at the beginning of our journey, maybe some of us are doing our PhD, whether we're on a big funded project like the ForPeat project funded by Horizon Europe, or whatever it is, we will be able to achieve more impact. So let's dive into our first exercise, if I may. And I'm going to invite you all to introduce yourselves in the chat. So if you can start doing that just now. Where are you from? If you are from one of the sister projects that we advertise this to, it'd be great to hear more about that. If you're from somewhere else, then great, let's hear what you're up to. And then I've got a slightly more unusual task for you to do in the chat. But let's introduce ourselves first. Anything you'd like to say about yourself in the chat? Yes, so we have people doing PhDs, we have people at professorial level, we got social scientists, engineers, people from professional services. Wonderful. I'm going to invite you to Raise a foot to the camera. So you'll need to turn your camera on, make sure that you're in gallery mode so we can see as many of you as possible. And I want to see what you're wearing. You weren't expecting this. Apologies if you've got something embarrassing on your feet. You've got time to change this right now if you want. And then once we've done this, have a look at everyone else's footwear. I'm going to ask you to decide whose shoes, socks, slippers, or whatever else we find out about each other you would like to swap places with. So we're going to assume if it's shoes, you've got the same size of feet. We're not going to ask any difficult questions here. And we'll see if there are any winners in terms of popular footwear. So cameras on if you can. And there we go. I've got rainbow socks on today. I forgot I was going to be doing this task, so that was just random good luck. I had some interesting socks on. Tracy, those look like very comfortable shoes. Excellent. James, we have classy black socks. Carl, wow, we are ready for some good weather. Louise, Crocs, you can do anything in a pair of Crocs. Brilliant. Chloe, those look like very nice shoes. Excellent, thanks, Jane. Umair has bare feet. Excellent. Emily, ready for a run? Excellent, thanks, Michael. They look nice and cozy. Brilliant. Taina, love it. And whoever else is coming in from Kinea, excellent. You can change your name actually under the rename. Go to three dots and then rename. So Lucy, yeah. Anyone else wants? You can't use the camera or can't raise your foot. Then describe your footwear. Thanks, Madalena. Good. So now in the chat, I would like you to tell me whose feet we can have Umair's feet, socks, Crocs, boots, whatever it was that you saw. Who would you like to swap places with? So I think I'm gonna. I wish that my office was as warm as Umair's. I'm gonna go with bare feet, please. Difficult question now. I would like to try and build a theory of impact, which we're then going to make very practical through the exercises that we do. I'm looking for a word. It could be a phrase if you want, but something that explains in theory what works if you want to make a difference through your research. So I want to actually make an impact. What is a principle, a theory, a kind of a core guiding principle that explains, yeah, if I do it like this, then this is what's going to work. But here's the trick. I want you to use this exercise, what we just did together, as the metaphor. So something about what we just did, showing what we're wearing on our feet, and then choosing some different footwear. Use this as a metaphor to explain what works when you want to achieve impact. That guiding principle. That thing that, in theory, if I do it like this, that's what works. This is what it makes impact actually effective. I'm not going to waste my time doing a whole lot of other things if I do it this way. Right, so we all have the need to put things on our feet. Well, everyone apart from Umair. And so this is something useful. We can help each other out. Maybe, in fact, someone's got something that's more useful than what we've got on our feet. Oh, I didn't realize that I could go to work in my Crocs or in my running shoes. Great, that's really helpful. But potentially it's less about what's useful and more about just what's comfortable. The question is, what are our needs? And based on our needs, if we're now aware of these options, we might be able to choose something that will better meet our needs. So what we're doing here, Susan is saying, is that we are engaging with each other. So this is not one way. I'm telling you what to do. We're all actually engaging with each other now. So this is multiple people all in two-way communication. We're influencing each other, but in a very gentle way, not telling you what to do. And we're catching each other's attention. Thanks, Louise. Yeah. So let's do something that makes you stop. Oh, I wasn't expecting to do this. I was thinking I might just do some emails in the background, but actually I have to now stop what I'm doing, turn on my camera, be accountable. And oh, okay, maybe as a result of this, yeah, I stopped doing what I was doing and pay attention. So great, we all have a context and we're able to match that context. Thanks, Taina. Yeah, Chloe as well. We're keeping this concrete and related to everyday life. Thanks, Madalena. Also, attention. Oh, great, Emily. It needs to have a firm base. So let's think about exactly how evidence-based is what we're doing. Am I going to give you a pair of shoes made out of plastic? That's going to, or paper. No, let's have something that is actually going to last. Maud, you're going to have to explain the air balloon metaphor, please, if you can come on mic or just write in the chat. But loads of great ideas. So none of you came up with the word I was looking for, but all of you are still right. Because there's a word here with a metaphorical definition. Ah, thank you, Maud. And that word is empathy. Empathy is by definition putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, or socks, or Crocs, or boots. But it's an act of the imagination, trying to understand what must it be like to be that person. And that's going to require a bit of research. I need to actually have a look around and see who these people are, because they could be completely different to me and outside of my experience. And now, as I talk to these people, understand who they are, understand their needs, their constraints from their perspective, I now look at what I'm offering. I can offer something far, far more effective that will meet their needs, make them comfortable, whatever it is, way better than the way that we normally do this. And the traditional approach is actually the opposite. We build our ivory towers, we do our projects, and at the end, we hope we've got something that's going to work. But the reality is that we've got these great ideas at the top of our ivory towers that we think are probably going to work. We throw them out to the world, and some of them actually meet their target. They work. But actually, the majority of them don't work. Had I actually spoken to anyone in the real world, they'd have told me exactly why it was never going to work, and I wouldn't have bothered. And of course, in some cases, this thing falls right on somebody's head and crushes them. We have negative unintended consequences. And again, had I started differently, I would have avoided the waste of time, but also the negative unintended consequences. And so for me, the theory that explains what works is an empathic approach. And that means critically, I don't start with my big idea. I start by asking who out there might be relevant to the kind of things that I'm working on. And now I go and talk to them, get to know them, understand their perspective. And only once I've done that do I then ask what I can provide for them. Now, of course, great if you're at the beginning of your project. For the ForPeat project, that's great. We are starting out. We can do that work. In fact, we've got a plan to do exactly some of the things we're going to be training you in today as one of our work packages. Or if you're closer to the end of your project, I think Alpha Wetlands, for example, we have Palos Demos, I can see we've got. Yeah, what do we do if we're nearing the end? And my answer is still, it's never too late to go and actually speak to, really deeply understand not just what these people want, but their constraints. And not just the people who shout loudly, but those other people who everyone forgets, and find out their needs. And I can still change whatever was going to be my dissemination strategy into an impact strategy that actually meets real need. It's never, ever too late. So this is my theory. I'm going to come at this in a number of different ways with practical strategies, evidence-based strategies that are going to be also very efficient. But let's just codify this, make sure that we've got this clear in our heads. And I'm going to and then stop for some questions and discussion to make sure that we are crystal clear on what we're trying to achieve here. Because get your thinking right and you can get the strategy right. And now we can focus on the things that are about impact. And I think the thing that we may waste most time on is just engage, 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 kind of for the sake of it. We've got lots of great social media metrics, visitors to our website, but no impact. And in fact, I could have done one simple thing that could have taken hardly any time that would have actually met that need and made a difference. And I was so focused on the engagement that I missed the point. And so, in a word, impact is benefit. If there's no benefit yet from what you're doing, then there's no impact. And I'm going to suggest it doesn't matter how many followers you've got on social media, it doesn't matter how many website visitors, how many downloads or users for your new decision support system, or whatever it might be, unless you can prove that someone has benefited from this, then it's just engagement. And I'm still waiting to see. And it may be that that person misuses your tool and actually causes more harm than good. But I don't know. It may be that, yeah, they listened, but I bored them. And maybe I even offended them. And they're never going to engage with someone like me ever again. The impact could be negative. So what we're looking for here are benefits. And yes, engage, but engage, yeah, as the pathway. The engagement is the means, not the end. And keep your focus on that end. And only engage in the ways that you think will benefit people. And keep engaging until you've got a benefit, because that's actually what matters. But when we do this, and we thread in this theory that I just taught you, we realize we have to ask this question deeply. Who actually is benefiting? And all of a sudden we realize that this is not quite as simple as we might have thought. Because whilst one group is benefiting, from the very same intervention, another group could be losing. They're all very often winners and losers. And we need to know who are those losers? And what can we do to at least ameliorate those disadvantages, or maybe even find a win-win for them as well? And so we need to be systematic. We need to think on purpose about the marginalised and the oppressed if we are to do something that is genuinely good. And in my Research Impact Handbook, I've used this word good on purpose to emphasise this is a value judgment. And what I might perceive as good, you might perceive as bad. What one group perceives as good, the other group might perceive as bad. Just look at politics. Yeah, you'd understand what I'm talking about, yeah? And it is the good that we do out there in the world. Let's just make this very clear. This is not about just benefiting our research group, our PhD students, our discipline. Yeah, that's academic impact, and that's good. But we're talking here today about the work, the good, the benefit that we derive outside of that. And this is my kind of more official definition. If you look at my 2021 paper in research policy. And the key thing that matters here is demonstrable is a word you see in many definitions. But this is the first time that this word perception has been built in to point out that this is not as simple as people make out. Impact is in the eye of the beholder. And this means that you have to do much deeper work on understanding what is impact. This graphic explains that there are different dimensions to this, two key things. We're talking primarily here about the depth of impact, what really matters. And even if only one person benefits, if this changes their life, you have achieved impact. And for me, that comes first. If I've done something that's transformed one person's life, I've made a difference. Great. Now I can ask how I can use the same thing to transform someone else's life. But if I start by trying to do something that affects every country in the world, but it doesn't really work, it's kind of incremental and nobody cares, or in fact, it turns out that I actually have caused more harm than good in every country of the world, I've got a problem. And so if impact intimidates you, this is a message of hope. All you have to do from your PhD, from your work package, and from that paper is to work out how you can benefit one person, one group, one community, whatever it may be, one company. Great. Then we build from there. But of course, yeah, let's think about reach as well. And we tend to think about this in terms of, right, from one community to another, one sector to another, but this can also be different governance levels. So yeah, I'm going to benefit farmers, but now I want to benefit their farmers union, so that can be cascaded out to others. And actually now I'm going to go to the agency that delivers the subsidies. And now I'm going to go all the way to the government department that tells that agency what to do. Great, we can have impacts that have reach both horizontally and vertically. And of course, there are different types of impact. From the left to the right, these are things that take less to more time. And I'm going to suggest that within each of our projects, we can all generate benefits in the arena of understanding and awareness and capacity or preparedness. This is not actually that difficult. But the key thing here is these are people outside academia. So that's the farmers, the medical practitioners, people like that. And as long as this is now understanding and awareness that they say is beneficial, not something that bored their socks off or that's completely useless head knowledge that they can do nothing with, something that they report as beneficial, then you can already claim that as an impact. And if this is benefiting them, then you're going to then start to see those other benefits following. That medical practitioner makes better decisions, that helps their patients, that leads to a health and well-being impact. And you can start developing these causal chains. Capacity or preparedness. I've done training for civil servants. Great, we can now make better decisions. We now can analyze the evidence more effectively, for example. Maybe as a result of that, that shifts a policy. And maybe that policy then has an environmental benefit. Yeah. And of course, the things that our funders want, that we ultimately want as our legacy, are the things on the right-hand side. But the evidence suggests that this is sometimes decadal timescales. You have to stay with this for the long run. And this is then thinking about how we work through different project cycles. So some of you have worked with me on the Wet Horizons project, coming to an end this summer. We're taking the impacts we were pursuing and then throwing them into the ForPeat project. Now working with other sister projects to see how they can build on what they have been doing. And we keep this moving between project cycles so we can get those longer term impacts. But I'm going to conclude and then break for some questions and debate. And if you need a comfort break, we'll make this a 5-minute discussion segment, so you can go and do that as well. But the heart of this impact agenda, in a metaphor and a word. I went to London's South Bank a few years ago with a sign that read "Smile," and me and my colleague grinned at random passers-by to see what would happen. And to our surprise, the majority of Londoners gave us a big grin back. Impact is something that spreads like an infectious smile. It spreads through the warmth of human connection. And this is fundamentally what we're talking about here. This is my daughter wearing my shoes in my front garden. She is putting herself in my shoes, wondering what it feels like to be dad. Yeah, that is your task next. And after the break, I'm going to introduce you to a tool. We're going to try that tool out that is going to enable you to systematically take that step of empathy into the shoes of the people that you hope to one day benefit from your research. And that act of empathy is what is going to enable you then to create an evidence-based pathway to impact that will actually work, that will enable you to prioritize the limited time you have in the things that will actually make most difference, and that will actually make a real difference to meet actual felt need. Now, I'd like everyone to at least write something in the chat. If you've got a question or a comment, you can also raise hand. It's in the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. It could be that you've already formed an intention, an action. I'm going to do something. Yeah, I don't really agree with you, Mark. Or what about this? A critical comment. Yeah, I love that idea, Mark. This is what I'm taking from this. This is what I've learned so far. But I'd like everyone to write something, please. And it can be a question. And especially if it's a question, raise a hand. Over to you.
Hello, Mark. Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you. And using this initiative that is being coordinated by Mark Reed within the context of the ForPeat project is really good to see how many participants we have reached with this. Just to not take too much of the time, Mark, but when you ask us about these, looking for this one word, right? And our how we can build up this metaphor in reaching impact. I wrote streamlining the communication channels to those who we want actually to create impact, right? Which
Mm.
ones we want to make the benefit for. And actually, in the context of we are talking right now about research and also in the context of ForPeat and other sister projects, that is about nature restoration and conservation, etc. I could see that, yes, we can identify, we have the tools, but then in the end, when trying to reach them, like for example, we are normally, normally I can put my personal context. I'm just working from home or from the office. I'm trying to build up onto business models, for example, in the Wet project, and also create impact to the actual people that live within the areas that we are trying to improve, right, and restore. But then how can I reach them, right? So I see that there is a very big gap, and I think we all agree on this. And there is a big gap in reaching to those people and organizations that will benefit from what we are doing at research level, no? So this is, I don't know, it wasn't a question, it wasn't a not being agree with you, or it's just an open question there or an open discussion on this. I don't know if anyone has something to add to this. We are always trying to reach by sometimes cold emails to people that we think they will be interested. We have some luck at some points, but then we are, as you say at the beginning, we are all very busy. We all have our tasks. We are all very limited in time and limited on our priorities and tasks that our institutions give to us. But, like for example, sometimes reaching to a farmer using digital tools is sometimes very difficult, right? So how can from home or from the office, how can I reach to those people? I guess there are already organizations or tools or websites, etc., to improve this, but I think there is still a lot of margin to improve. I don't know if you agree with me on this.
Yes, thank you, Alejandro. So this is exactly what we're going to look at in this next segment. We're going to use a method called a 3I analysis that enables you to strategically identify organizations and groups that are not just the usual suspects, but also those who might potentially have no influence and not even be that interested. I'm too busy just surviving. But who could be impacted more than anyone else, who we need to really think carefully about how we might engage, especially if they're a vulnerable group. And so it's a way of being systematic and inclusive about who we might want to involve. Um, we can do that just ourselves, and we'll practice this ourselves in a moment. But this becomes much more powerful when we then invite a few people into the room who have broader experience of working outside academia and in these kinds of broader arenas. And they can instantly say, yeah, but you've forgotten this group. And what about that group? And they can start giving us intelligence now about the kind of information that we need to be able to reach out effectively to those groups. And now it's not just a broadcast email, here's our project, come and talk to us, come to our event. It's a very targeted, okay, I've got actually now three top organizations that I can see have very specific needs and interests related to our work. And it's going to be a tailored email to each of those organizations saying, not here's me, here's our project, saying, here's you, here are your strategic objectives, here are the challenges and problems you're facing that you're trying to solve. And now here's how our project might be able to help you reach your objectives and solve your problems, meet your needs. Can we meet? And that then gets you a yes and a one-to-one conversation with those key organizations. Once you've built that relationship, that then begins to open doors to others. And it is that step of empathy now, through the tool, understanding them better just from doing this exercise, and then building on that within a real conversation with those people. It means, yeah, now I get really what you're interested in. Great, here's how we might actually be able to help. And now we build more of a partnership than just a network to disseminate our findings to. And that then enables us to build an impact plan. And very often, those organizations actually help resource, do the things in that impact plan with us, because that's their objective. They've got budget lines, they've got staff resources, and it works. They'll help us open doors. Yeah, let me introduce you to my colleague in that organization that you don't have a connection into. So yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. But it's about doing it strategically, because I don't have a lot of time. But actually, although you think you're saving time saying, great, big email out to a whole lot of people, come to our webinar, reality is it's the usual suspects. And actually, you're missing the key people who really needs to hear your work, and who you need to hear from as well. I've got a question from James. How do you go about reporting on these smaller scale but genuinely examples of impact? They seem to be tricky to capture in indicator frameworks, especially because we often have unexpected impacts. Yep, agreed. So the first thing that I do is when I'm proposing projects or revising things post-award, I will actually then articulate these changes in understanding, for example, or capacity building impacts as impact. And so it's just a minor change in wording, which is articulating the benefit. So by the time you've done a bit of work along those lines, you've talked to these people, they've told you, then this is not, the KPI is not a training course in how to do more inclusive stakeholder engagement, for example. Instead, this is civil servants within this government department have skills in more sensitively engaging marginalised and vulnerable groups in policy decisions that affect their lives. That's the skill that they now have. And you can see that that sounds much more like an impact now. It's specific and it's benefit focused. And then from that, I asked myself the question, okay, so what happens as a result of that? Oh, there must be benefits for those vulnerable, marginalized groups who are less negatively impacted and get more benefits from those policies. Oh, that also means we've got better policies. Great. And I then build that causal chain out from there. And now this is really useful because if I haven't yet achieved a genuine benefit and those civil servants don't actually have that skill yet, then those other things are probably not going to happen. And so I need to not focus on the policy so much as actually working on making sure the people who are making these policies have the right skills, if that's my theory of change, effectively. Yeah, so this typology, if I can call it that, Hannah's asking how to distinguish between these. You can be very fixed in this and say, I'm going to look for something in each of these boxes. And it's quite a useful way to do this as a checklist. But don't allow yourself to be constrained by that checklist or the wording of it. The key thing is not that I've got something in every one of these boxes, but at least I've got something probably towards the left-hand side of this that I think might be an impact based on what I understand of these real people out there. And I've reached out to them based on what I think they might need, based on their needs. We've talked to each other. They are now the ones telling me, yeah, I'm working on this problem. And actually, yeah, if you can give me this skill, here's how I'm going to use it. And here's how you might be able to help me with that. And they will help you to develop that longer causal chain, things that you don't have visibility to, you don't even have knowledge of, especially in policy processes, because you're not in that world. But they are, and they will help you to come up with what happens next. But that's the key. They help you do that rather than you doing that in your ivory tower and getting it wrong and wasting your time. So a few people talking about just, this is reframing how I think about impact. And I'm actually beginning to think about both positive and negative sides to this. So we don't have time to go into this just now, but my colleague Eric Jensen and I recently published a paper. This is part funded by the Wet Horizons project. And it's all about the ethics of engagement and impact. And yes, this is not, there's more than just research ethics. We should be thinking, actually, is the way I'm planning to engage with this group actually ethical? Are the impacts that could arise for this actually genuinely ethical? And yeah, an entire paper with some very practical advice on that. So we can go way, way deeper. We've got an entire course on the ethics of this, if anyone's interested in it. So let's move on to the practical tools. I've alluded to this in response to Alejandro's question. This is my 3I analysis. Let's see. We've also got a paper on this. So let me see if I can find the paper if you want to read this. This is also an output from the Wet Horizons project. We're using it in the ForPeat project. And you've got a worked example from Wet Horizons. Sorry, I can't find the relevant bit. Here we are. So 3I paper is in the chat. And yeah, I'm going to give you a tool as well. So let's see. So hopefully this will just drop into the chat, but for anyone who it doesn't work for, here is a Dropbox link. And so this is the template that we're going to use and do some work with. Let's just explain this first. So traditionally, when people are trying to decide who they should focus their attention on, they ask who's most interested and who has the most influence, usually for good. But we actually need to ask ourselves a few more questions, because there are people who are actually not interested in our work, and it's our task to work out how we can get them interested. But they're not going to come to our webinars and our meetings. There are people who have influence, but their influence is actually to block what we are doing. They may be ideologically opposed to our research and what we are doing. And they will do everything they can to block impact. Now, I do work on carbon markets. Turns out they've become incredibly controversial, and people are trying to stop them. The Guardian newspaper has had a very powerful and effective campaign to basically undo all of the research that I've been doing. And so, yeah, what do you do in that situation? And you need to understand who those organizations are too. And as I was saying in response to Alejandro, there are people out there who could be either positively or negatively impacted, who may have no influence and no interest. Those are the marginalised. Those are the oppressed. Those are the people that everyone forgets. And it is your task not to forget them. So your handout shows you a tool, and I'm going to invite you to just do this for one organization that you know something about, that you think might be interested in your research. If you're from professional services, I want you to think of a project, a team, an academic that you've supported recently, and think about an organization that would be relevant to them. Write the name of the organization. It could be a group, so I wouldn't say farmers, I would go hill farmers or dairy farmers, something a bit more specific. But it's easier to work with an organization with this initial example, so say the Farmers Union. So what is that organization and the relevant party? What is the nature of their interest in your work now? So one organization might be interested in this part of your research, another may be interested in that part. We don't know what their findings are going to be yet. If our finding is this, then one side of an argument will be happy. If the research finding is that, those same people are going to be very unhappy, but some other people are going to be happy. What is the finding they're interested in? Maybe, in fact, it's your research method that they're most interested in. A lot of the work we're doing in actually the carbon markets and the governments are interested in our measurement, reporting and verification methods. So yeah, maybe it's the methods. So what is the nature of that interest? This is what you're going to lead on in your email to those people to try and set up that first meeting, because it's that intersection of interests that is going to motivate them to say, yes, let's talk. But let's also think about their influence. How influential are they? Are they influential, perhaps? Yeah, the Farmers Union has influence over farmers. Actually, they represent some farmers more than others. Maybe some people feel quite disenfranchised, unrepresented by their union. Let's think about that. Maybe they're going to be more influential after a certain law has been passed. Maybe they've just had all their power stripped from them. As much detail as you can, and then the impact, positive or negative. What would be the benefits or the disadvantages that could arise from engaging with your work? And then finally, anything else, and a contact detail. Now, for you, you can put as many contacts as you like, but I'm going to suggest that when you go away from this, you do this with your project team. And if you don't have anyone on your team who already works out there, invite one or two or three people in to do that with you. You can also do this in survey mode, and you'll see more on that in the paper. And in that case, you're asking people to just say, yeah, talk to me. I'm giving you my name, and I will connect you with someone in that organization. So we're keeping GDPR right. But also, there's a nice strategic advantage because that's already a contact. And now when you get introduced by that contact, they're again much more likely to be receptive to what you've got to say. So I'm going to give you, let's see, maybe up to 5 minutes. I'll check in after 3 minutes, 4 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. I would like you to fill in this as an individual activity for one organization. Shouldn't take too long just to make one row. Okay, so finishing that one up, if I may. So the next task is to have a think about this. So share what came up for you in your group. So I'm going to give you, let's see, 7, 8. I think I'm going to give you up to 10 minutes on this. I'll come around the group, see how you're getting on. So share what came up for you, give each other feedback. I don't want you to go blow by blow. This was my organization, column by column. But more, what were the insights? So yeah, I know a lot about this organization, but this made me think a bit differently. Actually, I've already got some ideas now, some actions, some new ways I might want to engage with them. Actually, I really struggled with this. This is why. Tell me how this was for you. Let's try and problem solve this with each other, perhaps. So over to you. And you're going to be in groups of 3, a few of you in a group of 4. And yes, I said, I'll give you up to 10 minutes. I'll see how the groups are going, maybe a bit shorter if you've already managed to get through this and share. And then we'll take questions and debate and take this to the next level and then move into the planning phase before the end. So over to you. In the chat, questions, reflections. Yeah, this was great. I learned a lot. I'm seeing things differently. I've got ideas. I'm looking at this organization differently. I'm going to do things differently. Fantastic. What are your thoughts? What did you learn from this in the chat? But did anyone really struggle? Yeah, it didn't work for me. Didn't learn anything. Couldn't do the task. What were your issues? Tell me that as well. And maybe you want to raise your hand if that's you, so we can troubleshoot first. Yes, Louise, over to you.
I was lucky to end up in a meeting room with somebody else who's in the agricultural space because my organization deals with polluticulture, which is wetlands farming. And I'm quite new to this, but one of the, I think, psychological blocks for me that I have to get over is this feeling that maybe the farmers don't want to hear from people like us because they think we don't understand the reality of trying to make money off the land. And so it can feel almost like a big leap to go in and start talking about this kind of thing to farming communities when they might, what they're hearing from us might be very different from what we intend.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So this is exactly the kind of information that you get from something like this. Yeah, we have an intersection of interests, but with a bit of intelligence from a colleague like this, and you can already see just doing this with one other person or two other people in this group, I'm learning things, I'm thinking in new ways, and this is critical. So, in fact, my colleagues and I wrote a paper called "Have Farmers Had Enough of Experts?" To cut a long story short, the answer is yes. Farmers are least likely to listen to researchers in the UK, to the government as well, most likely to listen to other farmers. And that then means we potentially are wasting our time with any kind of dissemination strategy, which is about us talking to farmers or helping the government, in the UK at least, talk to farmers. They're not going to listen. And so now I need to think about how we can do this, for example, via the Farmers Union. So the Farmers Union, very often, you've got head of climate for the Farmers Union in England, who I've spoken to, and he wants to know how can farmers be part of the solution to the climate crisis, whatever his members might think about whether climate change is real or not. And he is willing to talk. And actually what he says, they may well listen to. And so instantly, yeah, let's forget that whole program of reaching out to dairy farmers. Let's just have one meeting now. Yeah, Michael, can I ask you what's your area? What kind of research do you do?
Manufacturing.
Okay. And so what kind of manufacturing, what kind of industries?
All kinds of manufacturing, a lot of medical devices,
Okay.
primarily. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Um, so yeah, trying to narrow down to one organization, this is the problem. Yeah, how many medical device manufacturers are there? Where do you start? And this analysis might say, well, actually, here is the largest in the world that has lots of influence. If I could reach out to them, maybe they would be able to have more impact than anyone else. So great, that's the one. Actually, no, this is the challenger organization that's trying to disrupt this market. And actually, that's who I'm going to go and reach out to. But I've got a basis now for choosing one organization. Or I actually think, yeah, you know what? The kind of research that we're doing is problematizing how the whole industry is doing this based on what we're seeing from real patients. Maybe actually I need to understand more effectively what the doctors are saying they need. I don't know. And then, well, yeah, I've got the entire national health service of my country. Where do I start first? Okay, maybe I go to my local hospital and I talk to some real people and they put me through their networks and I go from there. I'll give you a few more ideas in a moment on this in terms of just exactly where do I start. But as I said, starting with a colleague or a few colleagues and getting their help is often really powerful. Good, so thanks. Let's get some more stuff in the chat. What other thoughts do you have? Reflections, questions? Yeah, so Lindsay, you've done the work, you've done the impact, but the question is, how do we prove that we made a difference? And so maybe this was the group we were trying to help, but actually now I do this analysis and I realize, oh, there's a whole lot of other people who might have benefited. Maybe this is who we were trying to help, didn't really work. But this 3i analysis now gives me a second chance because actually I can see these organizations might benefit even more. Let's try again. Yes, Yona.
Oh, yes. I have more specific issues here because I am involved. I'm an impact officer at the moment, but for many years I've been involved at this science policy interface and working with the so-called boundary organizations that it's difficult to say. They don't only facilitate the communication between policymakers and researchers, but they do something more, which is not the time to discuss about anyway. The problem we have is that civil servants request research, they get it as fast as it may be possible. So they have the evidence base in their hands, they have recommendations in their hands, and yet we don't see impact. And this is where my question is. this whole system allows for engaging with the right people. This whole system and arrangement allows for policymakers getting the skills, as Mark, you earlier mentioned, if my theory of change is to make the policymakers to learn the skills of delivering and generating impact, we do that in a way. And yet that last step of seeing the impact beyond policy documents, beyond statements, beyond discussions, the parliament or wherever they take place. It doesn't get to the public. It doesn't change communities. And I wonder now if it even changes the individuals called civil servants. So I really appreciated all these kind of steps in the tables you have. But in some of them, I said, it depends. So what do we do there? How do we score the it depends?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, so what's quite useful about this and powerful is that you now can create multiple pathways to impact. So the classic one is we've got a huge conflict. I don't know. Some people say burning Helen Moorland is good. Other people say it's good for the climate, good for the economy. Others say it's bad for the climate and bad for nature. And they're both briefing based on different evidence, trying to persuade government to support their work. We're now going to do that decisive thing that's going to prove, is this good or bad for the climate? Whichever way this goes, we're going to upset one half of the people that we're working with. And so, depending on your finding, it depends. Are they going to be interested because it helps them achieve their objective? Or actually, is their interests how they now are going to prevent the worst negative impact on their interests? Either way, they've got an interest, but it's radically different depending on your finding. And so now you have to work out, I don't know the answer. And I've got two pathways to impact, one based on this finding, one based on that finding. In each case, you also have to think about the people you've upset who are going to be negatively impacted and how you're going to work with them. And they may be upset with you if you've not told them what they want to hear. But if you can give them early access, let them problematize. Yeah, but you haven't thought about this. Well, okay, let's go back and do a bit of extra analysis. It turns out still the same answer. Okay, great. You're giving them time to think about how they're going to adjust their position, etc. You're also flushing out all of their objections, so you have a rock-solid argument. And ultimately, you keep both groups on side. When the next project comes along, both groups say, yeah, we trust you, and we'll continue working with you, and you still have your impact. So you've mentioned boundary organizations that could be a individual. So you saw my introduction. If you want to connect to people in policy and markets, maybe actually it's just one person you talk to, and it's another academic. And that's the person that comes out of your 3I analysis. And that's the one person who it's worth reaching out to and making an effort to say, yeah, maybe there's a joint paper in this, Mark, or whatever it is you think I might be interested in. Great, now we're working together. And you get that goal. Oops, I pressed return too soon. That's the next tool. I'm going to just give you a couple of extra tips here. So a lot of people still are just like, yeah, I know it's this government department. And I think I've chosen this because this is one of the most opaque areas. Yeah, I know that this is the relevant department, but who on earth do I talk to? So first of all, do that internet search. Maybe there is information, at least for team leaders, and you can reach out to those people. Again, in this empathic way, explaining how you think your work intersects with their interests and will actually help them, asking for a one-on-one meeting. Yeah. If that doesn't work, then go to your networks. So someone like me, Mark, do you have any connections in? Yeah, I can introduce you to this colleague. Fantastic. It could be that you go to LinkedIn, and what many people don't know is that the superpower of LinkedIn is its ability to pinpoint individuals in particular roles within particular organizations. The visibility and the effectiveness depends on your network. If you don't have the right networks, it's not as effective. So it may be that you're coming to someone like me to say, could you look on your LinkedIn network? And in this particular case, someone came to me asking, do you know anyone who works on climate change in this government department? My answer was, no, sorry, I don't, but let me connect you via LinkedIn. So I put in climate change as my keyword, and then this particular government department, and it turned out I had 4 LinkedIn connections. When it then went to the connections of those 4 people and the connections of all of those people, it turns out that there were 730 named people working in that department on climate change. I screenshotted the first 3 pages, said, Google these people, reach out to them. Great, job done. So yeah, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's just your personal networks, great. Final last resort for me is to go to a public relations consultant. These are lobbyists. They are hired guns. They will work for the people who are not working with evidence, who are working against you. They'll also work for you if you've got funding. And so take your ethics very carefully into these conversations. On occasion, I have worked with these people where there is no other way to reach a high-level person who is blocking something. But yeah, not for the faint-hearted, and you need money. But hopefully you've got a sense now of where to go with this. I've spent our time thinking about these ways of thinking about what impact is, which is point 1. Let's define our destination. Our destination is not lots of social media followers, YouTube views, downloads. The destination should be a benefit, that measurable positive change you want to see. And then we've moved straight from that to saying, right, if this is the kind of thing that I'm hoping I might see out in the world, before I go any further, I start talking to the kind of people who are interested in this to find out actually what this looks like from their perspective. And this is what works. This is what will save you time and enable you to be strategic. This is, therefore, the key thing that explains what will work, what will deliver you impact, and what will save you time, which is why we focused here. But now, with that information, after 2 or 3 conversations, that's all you need to start with, I can now begin to adapt the kind of engagement methods that are going to suit the kind of context, the people, the power dynamics. And I'm going to monitor this as it goes, because great, we're doing engagement, but I want to know if it's actually working. If it's not, I need to keep going. And actually, that monitoring is important because it may be that it's going wrong. So I learn and I adapt. And to do this, I'm going to share one final impact template. We're not going to do this because the point is you don't do this yet. You start, your homework is you do the 3I analysis properly. You can do this on a call, just turn this into a Google Sheet, share this with your colleagues, do this on a call. As I said, you can turn it into a survey, look at the paper, but do your 3I analysis. Based on that, reach out to some key people, have those conversations, and then informed by that, potentially even with their help doing this with you, you can then complete this template. There's a worked example in this as well you can look at in your own time. This is based on some of the peatland work that I've been doing. And instantly you can see, I'm going to have to do different kinds of activities for farmers versus investors and bankers. Kind of obvious, but it's reaching the same objective, but I tailor my engagement to the relevant people. And great, I can think about this and maybe get something approximately right, but based on the conversations with actual real people and these people in my networks who understand how bankers think versus how farmers think, which is kind of different, yeah, that's the kind of intelligence I need to actually design something that works. And in this particular one, there's no social media, no YouTube videos, no webinars. It's actually talking to people and doing workshops. At this point already, I'm asking, what are the indicators? How will I know this is working? And now I can see if I'm on track or if it's kind of going wrong. I ask at this point what could go wrong. And I don't just do this in my own head. I talk to these people because these are the people who have already had really bad experiences of working with researchers. For example, they know what can go wrong and they will tell you. And now with their help, you can come up with some risk mitigation. And then finally, who's going to do what? And ideally, it's not just you. These are people out there in the real world who are going to jointly own this plan with you. And now we all share this. And this is the final way in which this helps you save time. I can maybe come up with 10 different impact objectives. But what are the top 3 that are going to make the biggest difference, that are most relevant to people out there, but they're also most relevant to this project? Which of these are achievable, and which of these actually are shared by people out there, maybe with resources who can help me to do this more effectively with less of my time, my team's time. And the result is now I take a more strategic approach, and it's a shared approach, and that joint ownership saves me time and makes me more effective. So in your own time, and that is a next step after completing your 3I analysis. A few of you on the EU Horizon-funded sister projects, we're actually moving to that next step sooner rather than later. We've got a call coming up, I think, end of this month, to start thinking about how we pursue impacts from our prioritised top impacts. But for all of us now as individuals, whether you're taking part in that institutional work or not, I want you to all make an action. And if you can comment in the chat, then that would be great because that will inspire others. But also write it on your to-do list and make sure that this is something you're going to do. Consider being accountable with someone. You can reach out to someone else on the call and say, yeah, how do you fancy meeting up a month from now? Maybe it's someone who was in that group with you. Let's see how we get on with this. And another way of being accountable is you can sign up to my follow-on training to embed impact in your research. 5 emails over the next 5 weeks. It also subscribes you to my newsletter, and I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. Let's see, 4 researchers, there we are. And it's just a nice reminder of, yeah, I went on this training and I promised myself I was going to do some things. Oh, there's another email. Oh, with a nice simple task, 5 or 10 minutes to do a task. Each task builds on the next, and that's based on part 2 of my book, The Research Impact Handbook. So you're also getting free access to that with videos of me talking you through it. It's a nice way to just be accountable, follow this up. But otherwise, I'm going to suggest sign up to my newsletter. And remember that there are lots of other resources, free resources. I'll be sending you lots of links to them via email, and training courses. I mentioned the ethics of impact, a deeper dive on engagement. We also do training on how to increase your success rate in terms of funding, with a particular emphasis on impact. And that can have an EU flavour or another national flavour to it. So lots of other resources and opportunities to follow this up. And critically, free training on influencing policy. It's going to be a double extended session that will enable us to go in much more depth. So do sign up for that if you haven't already. If you can't find that, it's on my social media. Go to my LinkedIn profile and scroll back. And I will look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Take care.